You got it.
Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Norfolk City Council, January 25th or 21st, 2025. I'd like to inform the public of the location of the Open Meetings Act posted in the council chambers, sitting right there on the wall over there. This time I'd like to take a moment and then we'll stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Granquist.
Here.
Arns.
Here.
Webb.
Here.
McCarthy.
Here.
Beckman.
Here.
Jensen.
Here.
Langy.
Here.
Hildebrand.
Here. I'm here also, just so you know.
There.
Okay. I need approval of the consent agenda, removing item number 11 from the agenda.
I would move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Please vote.
I will be abstaining from this vote.
Okay, all right.
Voting in the affirmative, McCarthy, Granquist, Arns, Jensen, Langy, Webb, Beckman, abstaining, Hildebrand. Motion carries.
All right. I need approval of a full agenda, removing item number 11 from the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
All right, that brings us on to special presentations, and tonight's presentation is of the library's annual report. Yeah.
Hello. Let me write this. Take care of the paperwork here first. My name is Kurt Bogner. I am the president, chairman of the Citizens Advisory Board for the Norfolk Public Library. And I think you all got the annual report in your packet. So I'm here to present on that. One correction that I'll call out, under public use of computers with children's electronic materials, the 2023-2024 number of 18,992 is actually 11,638, which the percent change is 22%. So that's the typo that we caught earlier today. But it's interesting, you know, we had the library expansion. We went for the half-cent sales tax in 2014. And a guy I worked with said, nobody reads books anymore. We don't need to, you know, expand the library. But what the annual report shows is, you know, library services year over year has increased. And it's also interesting that a lot of the increases that really pulled the library services forward is a lot of electronic media. You know, use of public computers was up 25%. You know, databases, that's about the same, but also programming for children, young adults, and teens, that was also up, as well as our adult programs. So year over year, the library has seen a lot more use, but it's not just the print media. Again, that's up year over year, but it's also the other services the library provides. So that's the annual report. Any questions that we can answer?
I was one of those skeptical people also at the beginning, and it's been proven wrong, and glad I was proven wrong. It's been impressive to see with the expansion and what that's all done for our community and the people that get to utilize the library, and it's been a good asset for our community.
Yeah, it is a great thing. It's interesting. So I came on the library board in 2014. I was appointed by the current mayor, and he said, welcome aboard. And I got there, and he said, by the way, we're going for a 0.5-cent sales tax to expand the library. But that's been a real great thing. It really gets utilized. It's a gem for the city of Norfolk, and provides a lot of services to the people of Norfolk and also surrounding areas. One thing I'll call out in here is, through the Norfolk Library, we have access to all other libraries through the interlibrary loan. So if our library doesn't have it, you can fill out a form, and I've done that numerous times. I've always gotten, an interlibrary loan from somebody else in the library system in Nebraska. So if we don't have it, we can still get it and provide it to our constituents. So it's been great and continues to provide that service to the community.
I just have a comment. When you said about book reading being down, I'm an avid reader, and my daughter, youngest daughter and granddaughter, they're at the library almost every week. But I don't like social media. I don't like electronics. I make Kylie print me out packets because I like the paper. I sit in my chair when I'm not doing something and I read, or I sit on the deck in the summer and I read, and it's always a book. I've had a Kindle. I didn't care for it. So your services are greatly appreciated, and I know many people who utilize them. So it's a great, great thing that's over there. Yes.
Very good.
Kurt, I do have a comment. I noticed that all your numbers are, for the most part, all positive as far as an increase in usage. Do you have communication like with other libraries or the personnel there? How do we compare? Are we in line with our usage? Are other communities down? Are they up? How do we compare? And do you think the new library contributed?
Personally, I think we compare favorably. I'm familiar with Grand Island's library. I think we compare favorably to them, but we also have Jessica, who's my phone a friend. So you might be able to answer that better, since when we do our strategic planning and we look at our policies, I know Jessica reaches out to other libraries in the state. It's like, hey, what's your policy for this? How do we compare and try and get consistent? So
I haven't looked at our sister cities in the last couple of years, but the last time I did, we were at their level or higher for our population as far as usage of the library and program attendance and circulation. But I'd be happy to take a look, because I haven't updated that kind of my own knowledge on that in the last couple of years. So.
No, and that's fine. The reason I asked that question was just, I think that to show that the benefit of having that new library is being received well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great point.
I just wanted to comment to you guys. I drive everywhere. So when I say I went on vacation to Phoenix last year, I drove to Phoenix with my kids. And due to my job, I always I have to go and print things off, whatever, even though I'm on vacation. I always go to a public library. I will tell you that I have seen hundreds of libraries over the last 10 years, and we are by far one of the best libraries I've ever dealt with. And libraries, when you walk in, you go, oh no, they have a lot more people than we have, just kind of by how it looks. But you look around and you go, why? Well, so everything, the look, the feel, you guys do a great job. I've had many scouts that have come in there and done things on all the different stuff, and just wonderful job. I cannot commend the staff of the public library enough for the job that you guys do and how you keep the facility looking wonderful.
Thank you so much.
thank you. Any other questions?
I'll give you the focus groups on entrepreneurship, the programs you guys are doing right now. What's that about? Give you a chance to talk about that.
So the library does a strategic plan. I think it's every 5 years. I got that right. So it's every 5 years. We're just finishing up the last strategic plan. And so currently we're doing focus groups of various stakeholders, entrepreneurs you mentioned, I don't remember what the other ones are, but we're gathering information. We have a consultant that works with us that runs those focus groups, and so she's gathering information, and so she'll kind of compile that, and then I think mid-February, the board will meet for an all-day seminar in service, and the consultant will present that information, and we'll use that to work up our strategic plan for the next 5 years. And so the strategic plan is, what we want to accomplish in various categories, community building or outreach or, whatever. And then there'll be actionable items in each of those categories. And it'll be actionable items and also kind of a plan of attack year by year. And then coming back to the Citizens Advisory Board, we look at that annually. We look at the strategic plan, what we've accomplished in that strategic plan and what's coming up in the next, couple years for the strategic plan as well.
Could you also give us a comment for the audience that's watching about you have a Meet the Author series that you do, and I believe you have a Norfolk High graduate coming here in the next couple of days?
I will phone a friend again.
I'm sorry, I don't know what that program is either.
Well, don't you have, isn't Tammy,
Tammy Marshall?
yeah, well, that's how I know her, is Tammy Marshall. I don't know what her married name is. So, yeah, Tammy
Yeah,
Marshall.
I think she still writes under that name.
Oh.
She does have a new book out, and that we
Yes.
will definitely have a copy of. We don't have her scheduled for a program quite yet, but we will.
Oh, okay, I
Yeah.
thought she was, I knew she was
Yeah.
coming to town, I had to go to the
Yeah.
library for something, I thought it was a series,
Right,
sorry about that.
Maybe giving a
So-
talk somewhere else
Yeah, that could be.
tomorrow in the next
All right.
couple of days. But yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, she's a great asset.
All right.
I think that might be it. Thank
Sounds
you.
good. All right, thank you.
We're on to public hearing and related action. This time I'd like to go to item number 14 and open the public hearing to consider a Class D liquor license application for Jerry Standard, Inc., doing business as Jerry Sinclair, 1029 South 13th Street, the manager application of Wade Blackman.
All right, so I will speak on this. So on January 7th, 2025, I received the Class D liquor license application for Jerry's Standard, DBA Jerry Sinclair, 1029 South 13th Street. This location currently has a Class B license and has held that license since before 2005. The owner of the business recently applied for a different type of liquor license, and that is the reason for the application and public hearing. A background check was completed by the Norfolk Police Department and is attached to the agenda. So following the public hearing, the next item is the resolution, which is the council's official recommendation to the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission on issuance of the license. And the applicant is here if you have any specific questions for him.
You want to come up? I don't know if we've got any questions for you, though. But come on up, Wade.
We got questions. Not for me, though, right?
I do have one for you. So just explain, what's the difference between the two liquor license and why?
Well, right now,
why-
we can only sell beer, off-sale beer. In other words, we can sell it to take, we can't consume it at our location. The D is I can sell like alcohol and wine, so like the shooters and the small ones for, that everybody sells now.
Yep.
That's pretty much it. It's still off. They gotta take it away. They can't drink it. They can't consume it. Offset, yep. So, that's it. That's pretty much the whole deal. Yep. All right, that it?
So, thanks, Wade.
Sign in.
Oh, yeah, if you could, Wade, if you could sign in quick. Just got to sign your name and print that down. And that's just a reminder for everybody that comes up, just fill your name out so I don't have to interrupt you mid-sentence, so.
And wait, if you'll state your entire name for the record.
Wade Blackman.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wade.
Any other discussion? Any discussion from public? So I'll close the hearing. All right, so now I just need a motion to, for item number 14, to consider the Class D liquor license application for Jerry Standard Inc., doing business as Jerry Sinclair, 1029 South 13th Street, and the managed application of Wade Blackman.
I would move for resolution number 2025-4 for approval.
Second.
We got a motion, a second, in discussion? All right, seeing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, Resolution 2025-4 is adopted.
All right, that moves us on to, so am I 15?
16.
Yeah, got it. Move this to item number 16 of the regular agenda. Consideration of approval of amendment number 1 to the testing service contract with the Certified Testing Services, Inc. for the concrete repair 2024 project for the addition amount not to exceed $15,000.
I'll make a motion for consideration of approval of amendment number 1.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? And Steve will be handling this, so if we have some, or I'm sorry. Steve's not going to be handling this. Anna's going to.
Steve passed it off to me today, so
My note said Steve, so.
that's okay. That's fine. I'm Anna Allen, Assistant City Engineer. So the amendment for the testing services is for our concrete repair project that we awarded last summer of 2024. So originally, we put together a $15,000 contract with Certified Testing Services. They come down here and do our soils testing and our concrete testing for all of the material we're putting in for this project. We've used them on several other projects here in town. With this contract and needing the additional amount, when we did all of our repair work for this last summer and fall, we did rely on certified testing a little more often than we typically do. We were doing some additional testing for a concrete mix that we started using over the summer and fall with this new contract. So, and it is a not to exceed price of $30,000 for the new contract. So, can I answer any questions?
So where is this project exactly at?
So the concrete repair 2024 project is in several different locations around town. So far this last year, they did a portion of Benjamin Avenue east of First Street. So we go out and we identify different panels of concrete that have cracks or just different things we look for, cracks, or if it's looks like it has some issues with the subgrade, we'll take that panel out and replace it. So we go out, we mark out those panels that need to be replaced and then put that in this contract. So East Benjamin Avenue, between First Street and the railroad, they did last year. Riverside, just south of Benjamin, going south, just past the McDonald's there, they did that. Taylor Avenue behind Menards, they did that stretch last year, and then Paz Walk from Highway 275 up to Taylor Avenue. And then a portion over on East, on Center Drive behind the mall. So they did a lot of that concrete repair in there. Coming up this next spring when they start back up, we'll be doing 18th Street between Center and Paz Walk, and then Brosh here on 5th Street from Brosh to Prospect, and Brosh from 7th to 5th for concrete repairs.
So how are these areas determined on where you test? What is the criteria for that?
We have in our standard specifications. I believe it's every 300 yards or per day of concrete placed. With the concrete repairs that we're doing, there's a lot of small pours, so, and it's, from day to day, the mix stays, relatively the same. If we're gonna be working on a bigger stretch of concrete, one day, we'll probably test that day, but within, just these small portions every single day, we typically don't test every day. But moving forward, we were gonna, with this mix, with this new concrete mix that we had been using, we'll start off this spring probably doing more frequent testing just to make sure it's dialed in. But other than that, probably every 3 days or so of pouring, do that.
So what is the new mix that we're using?
This newer mix that we started using with this project, it's a concrete mix similar to what we had before, but it has more larger aggregate than the fine aggregate.
Like a
So-
47B, 30%?
So the 47B has the smaller aggregate in it. So that's our NDOT standard mix that we've been using. Omaha just adopted a new standard specifications, and they're using this mix. So we're technically calling it the Omaha mix. It's the OPW. So and that has that larger amount of large aggregate for durability, longer lasting. Less prone to issues with freeze thaw and stuff like that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Public, any questions or discussion?
Hello.
Hey, how's it going tonight?
Well, my name's David Jansma. I think it's great we start doing road repairs, but as you all know, about a year ago, I complained about a certain stretch and nothing's been done. I really think we need to focus on residential areas too. We do pay our taxes, we do our best, and I think the focus needs to be on those areas first. And I submitted all pictures and stuff, and really nothing's been done.
I did see the pictures you submitted and where it had concerns about. Maybe Steve can address that and what plans are coming forward to some of the residential repair and taking care of some of these areas that have, potholes and whatnot.
Well, they're not potholes. There's cracks, there's other areas, there is a storm drain collapsing, there's a storm drain where the whole top's missing, some dangerous situations. I just think it's time we focus on that.
Yeah, so we have quite an aggressive list. The project that's going on right now is about $1.9 million. It is, I want to say probably about 50%, maybe 60% focused on some of our more commercial areas. We do have some going on in residential areas. As we clean up some of the commercial spots, it is a little bit heavier focused on higher volume areas. But it's high volume areas that have a significant amount of distress.
So not to interrupt you, but my question is, why do you want input from citizens about where to repair if you're not gonna do it?
We pull all that in. It does get added. We have a database full of.
Over a year before
Yes.
they even do any patching to speak of? Come on. We need
Yes.
to try harder.
Dave, what?
Steve, is this something that
What
our
roads-
own crews could do?
It's on Clearview.
Our crews are primarily focused in the residential areas. You know, we've been increasing, I don't have exact numbers, but on an annual basis, they're increasing the amount of work that they are getting done. I'd have to go back and look. I don't specifically remember the area.
It's on Clearview.
Clearfield,
Yeah, Clearfield.
Valley
Yeah.
High to 25th
Yeah.
Street, and a little bit on the other side. I mean, I submitted it, did what I was supposed to do, communicated
Yeah.
to my
You know,
councilman.
Here about
and-
18 months ago, we did that community survey and gathered about $5 million worth of high distressed areas.
Well, I understand what that survey was about, but this was on the website. If you have a concern about an area, submit it. I took pictures, did everything I was supposed to, and that's where it laid. So, something to think about, folks. We gotta worry about the citizens.
It's not that it's in the queue. Yeah, I'm sure that that is in the queue, specifically since it came in through the citizens portal. We do prioritize those things that come in on the portal. It's just, you know, there was more work there that we could, than what we could get to.
Well, sorry.
So I think with my question was, is this something that our own city crews could look at addressing, maybe, since it was put through the portal, he did follow the chain of command
Yeah.
of how to get on the importance list in the residential areas. I think that really was his question.
And certainly, you know, right now is when we're sitting down with our street crews, looking at those areas that they're gonna be focusing on this year. So that's, you know, that is, like I say, that is in the queue, it's in the process. If it came through the citizens portal, and we don't, when that stuff comes through, if we can get it into the system during the current year, we'll do that. As that stuff comes in, probably late summer, early fall, that's just not gonna get into that year's queue most likely. We do look at those things that come in, and again, if it's an absolute need, we can redirect forces to get there, but otherwise it goes into our queue for the next year.
Is there you know, maybe a different criteria when you find a safety issue? Like, I think you suggested there might be a manhole that's missing a cover. Maybe I heard that wrong. Storm drain, missing a top that, you know, when you have a level of,
If there's absolutely, when that stuff comes in, again, we put eyes on that through the street department. Sometimes engineering will be included in that, but if there's a safety issue there, we would be addressing that right away. So I'll look at it and make sure that there isn't a safety issue there right
you
now.
know, right now we know there's a manhole or a storm sewer cover missing on Clearfield. Maybe
Yeah, I
I
don't-
put it in notes and maybe run to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not,
For over 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
It's been a year since I filed what I did.
I mean, we'll look at it.
Note
certainly.
taken. There we go. Okay. Any other discussion? All right, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Moves us along to item number 17, consideration approval and agreement with Hayter Rural Fire Protection District, a pivotal subdivision of the state of Nebraska, for the sale of a 2003 International Custom Rural Fire Pumper for $35,000. I want to ask Tim to come and discuss that. I'm sorry, I need a motion
I
first.
will offer for consideration the approval of agreement with the Hayter Rural Fire Protection District.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, so we'll go into discussion.
All right, Mayor and Council, thank you for having us on the docket tonight to work through these next 2 items. They are connected, as the staff memos that Chief O'Brien wrote state. The first of these has to do with the sale of a custom rural fire pumper. That's a 2003 model that we received new and unused in 2003. That truck will be getting replaced in, hopefully pending your approval tonight, around 500 to 600 days with a new rural fire pumper. And as part of those discussions, our automatic aid partner down the road in Hayter had expressed quite a little interest in the truck that's going to be going away. It's not uncommon. They have a truck right now that we sold to them when one of our last pumpers was decommissioned for us and replaced with a new one. It was still operational, and they've done a fine job keeping it running as such. The reason the number is $35,000 is because that's what 2 of the 3 vendors, actually all 3 of the vendors that submitted bids for the new truck, were going to allow us for trade-in allowance. We presented that to Hayter's Fire Chief and their Rural Fire Board, And they were all in agreement that that is something they wanted to proceed with at $35,000 and take ownership and receipt of this used truck once we receive our new truck. So we would maintain this current truck as is, this rural fire pumper that we have, over the next couple years, year and a half, 2 years. Once the new truck arrives, pending your approval to order, this truck would go down the road to Hayter. They would pay us upon receipt. The agreement spells out all things like if there were damages or heaven forbid accidents, how that would all work through the process. So in addition to that, just a quick backdrop on before Chief O'Brien comes up on the next item, this truck that we are about to buy hopefully is a part of a 12-year rural fire board agreement. We have contracts with our rural fire protection district. Those are 12-year agreements that are renegotiated at the end of those timeframes. We just renegotiated this past summer a new 12-year agreement. This is the first truck within that contract that would be purchased. So this will come from the Rural Fire Protection District contract. It's shown in the CIP, it's just other funds. It's not public safety tax anticipation bonds. So I just wanted to clear that up. The $35,000 that we would get from Hayter then would be used to pay down the balance of the new apparatus. So I would entertain any questions you might have. All right, thank you.
Any further discussion? Discussion from the public? All right, we'll ask for a vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
All right, that moves on to item number 18, consideration of approval for the purchase of the replacement of the custom side mount engine from Hyman Fire Equipment for $685,024 for the use by the fire division.
All up for consideration.
Second.
All right, got a motion, so some discussion here. Trevor, yep, sorry. Trevor's gonna be giving some discussion here, so.
No problem. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you see before you, we have consideration of approval of a new fire apparatus that Chief Rogge mentioned briefly. Over the past year, we've formulated a committee served by all three of our captains and a few shift members, along with myself, to come up with a truck that mirrors what we have right now with some improvements. And super thankful to all of our staff for putting in hard work to get that done. So some of the improvements we're looking at with this current truck, we have quite a few tools that are old and needing replaced. So things such as ladders, hand tools, those types of things, we're working on building into this process. A new rear intake valve, which will help us in the rural setting. A lot of times we have to position a truck in a driveway with the rear of the truck facing toward the road. So that'll increase our safety when we're in those situations because we have to bring our water in the rural setting. And we usually get a stack up of trucks on the road. This will allow us to put our drop tank at the rear of the vehicle. So that's going to be a big improvement for us. Additionally, we're going from a 750 gallon a minute pump to a 1250 gallon a minute pump. So that will mirror more closely to what our city apparatus are. The benefit to that is with, say, things like the Norfolk crush plant, new industry, some of the building construction changes over the last 20 years and the new products that they're building. Fires are burning hotter, they're burning faster, which requires more water at a rapid rate to put them out. So there will be some great improvements built into this truck. Some of the other things, the nice part about being able to sell this old truck and moving into a custom truck is our street department has been crucial in keeping our stuff up to par. So we feel really good about getting rid of that truck to our mutual aid partner. And we also feel pretty confident with Hyman and Rosenbauer that we're going to get a truck that'll last us another 20 years with their upkeep. So as you notice, this truck comes in at $685,024. We had budgeted $750,000 last year in the CIP when we were talking to vendors. So it's nice to be able to see a $65,000 savings essentially. We've also been working with Norfolk Truck Center here locally to get a customer supplied chassis. So we'll be getting that right here locally drop shipped to Rosenbauer and having them build out the rest of it. basically, we're just looking for your approval for this. We did have a rule board meeting here last week, and they were fully in support. So I guess with that, I'd entertain any questions that you might have.
Why does Chief Rocky send you up to ask for money, but he comes in here and tells us he's selling something to give us money?
That way, when it doesn't get approved, I'm the one that has to list that.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
You bring up the crush plant, and those bins, do we have the capacity to get to the top of those bins at the crush plant? Do we have
As
equipment?
far as our aerial, there's quite a few that we can reach, but there are some that we would have to use their manways and walkways. But we do have a rope rescue team that's trained in that. We train with Nucor and those places, and we are setting up some training this spring to do with them as well. So we have the capabilities, yes, but just not from an aerial perspective. So, yep.
You said you got them down 65,000, but how come you couldn't get them to drop $24?
She's here if you want to come on. It was a combination of the build out of the truck and then the chassis that came from Norfolk Truck Center. So we'll work on that.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional discussion? Anybody from the public want to add in anything? All right, seeing none, please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
All right, that brings on to item 19, consideration of ordinance number 5912 enacting section 1423-4 of the code to prohibit possession or use of vapor products and/or tobacco by any person under the age of 21.
I'll offer for consideration ordinance number 5912 enacting section 14-234.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Got your nose is working, you might be able to smell some of that. Mayor, Councilman, thank you for the time tonight. My name is Officer Brent Teets. I've been a police officer since 2003, where I started in Lincoln. 2009, I came up to Norfolk and I got a job with the Norfolk Police Division. And in 2017, I started my dream assignment as a school resource officer with Norfolk Public Schools. This is an ordinance that's been on my mind since I've been a police officer and kind of wondered why it wasn't a state law or a city ordinance in other places. And it's something that I've been thinking a lot about. And one day last November, I had dealt with several students in school that I caught with vapes, and I had to deal with them. And then that's when I decided I needed to take action and do something about this. So I prepared a memo for Chief Ty at the time, and I decided that I'd like to read that for you guys here today. Because if I try to wing something, my wife says that I love the sound of my voice in a microphone, and I will take all of your time. So I'm going to go ahead and read this for you. Because really, it gets across all the stuff that I want you guys to understand about this ordinance and the reason behind it. Chief Ty, I believe it is time to address a problem within our community. As a school resource officer, I've seen the increase and significant use of vaping devices by our young people. These types of devices have been found at every building level in our district, and that includes elementary schools. The problem has prompted Norfolk Public Schools to install vape detectors in restrooms at the high school, junior high school, and middle school. Other schools in the Norfolk community have felt compelled to do the same to address the problem in their buildings. In school, we do our best to educate students on the harm these devices can do to young people. Whether that be formally in a health class lesson on the effects of nicotine and vaping on the body, or informally when I have a chance to talk to a student who I caught with a vape in school, we do the best we can to teach them the risks and ways to say no. Certainly the manufacturers of these devices have done us no favors. They create and market products that are attractive to young people. They make dozens of different flavors available and make their products easy to use. In my school resource officer role, I am dedicated to helping students to learn from their mistakes and be a better person. School resource officers never want to issue our student citations. We have a unique place in law enforcement which allows us to use different resources through the schools and the community to help kids to help keep students out of the judicial system while at the same time providing them with guidance and a chance to learn. However, sometimes it becomes necessary to issue that citation. When a young person has been given chances to learn and correct their behavior but continues to make bad decisions, it becomes time to be a police officer and issue that citation. Here's where the change in Norfolk needs to be made. Currently, there is no state statute that addresses the possession of tobacco or vaping device by a minor. The statute only pertains to the use and purchase by a minor. As an officer, I have no option of issuing a citation to a minor for possessing of the device. So what are we telling our young people? It's okay for them to have it as long as they don't use it? It just doesn't make sense to me. I feel it is time for Norfolk Municipal Code to take a stand and address the issues since our representatives in Lincoln have not taken the time to do so. In researching this topic in Nebraska, I found that 5 of the top 11 Nebraska cities by population have some type of city ordinance which makes possession of tobacco or vaping device by a minor a violation in their community. Grand Island, Kearney, Fremont, Hastings, and North Platte all have recognized the problem and addressed it. It's time for Norfolk to join this group. Just like speeding violations, an officer isn't always required to write a citation. Norfolk police officers are trusted to use their discretion when enforcing laws with the end goal of compliance. A Norfolk City ordinance addressing the possession of tobacco or vaping device by a minor would be a significant tool officers could use to help address an issue in our community that has no signs of slowing down. That really takes care of all the things that I need you guys to know about this ordinance and the necessity of it. And I brought some visual aids here, and these are the devices that we have confiscated over the last 2.5 years in school. And that's just the junior high school, and that's just the ones that I've kept. Other ones I don't keep because they don't come from very clean places. So those are the ones that we've kept. And I just feel like it's time that we operate on the assumption that it's illegal to possess these things by minors. In fact, I just had a discussion before the meeting in the hallway here a little bit ago where somebody just assumed, and I would guarantee that the majority of people in this room probably assumed that it was illegal for minors to possess these devices and tobacco, but it is not. So if anybody has any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. Also, Officer Dave at the high school is here as well to answer any questions you might have about high school problems.
Danny, what would the penalty be with this?
It would be similar to the other offenses under city code, generally a fine, or, because we are talking about minors, they can always transfer to juvenile court and go through that system, which is usually probation, something along those lines.
I guess I would just like to make a comment that I would like to applaud you for bringing this forward and actually getting this on the agenda, because I'm with you. I'm not sure I knew that it was illegal. So thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Yep, thank you.
The whole thing is I'm Officer Dave Lichtenberg. I'm the resource officer at the Norfolk Senior High. We sent the young guy up first, and then the old guy comes up and talks. These Norfolk Public School District recognized we had a huge issue with this in schools. And in January of 22, right, we're talking about. So we're 3 years into it. They installed vape detectors in all the bathrooms, and they're at the senior high, the junior high, and at the middle school. The school administrators work really hard and to combat this and to work with the kids to try to curtail this. Doesn't stop it, no, but it's slowed it down. His box is 3 years old. My box, he has about 600 kids. I have about 1,400. My box is twice that size, and again, that's just the ones that we've kept. The ordinance deals with the nicotine base, but it also, as it's worded for the vape issue. It's not only the nicotine, which is all synthetic salt-based, which is highly addictive. These kids get hooked so quickly on this that they just cannot get through the day without vaping with this. The other issue is the THC vapes, and that's kind of twisted, and we continue to fight this. I think everything in there should just be nicotine. The THC vapes that we have, we make criminal cases on, and the statutes are there for us to do that. The THC vapes that contain Delta-9 is what state statutes give us to work with, and they're illegal. So what do the Chinese do that import this? Then they make Delta-8 vapes. Then they make Delta-10 vapes. Then they make THC-A vapes. Now, it used to be that when we had these cases and working with the kids, that we could field test the THC vapes. And they may look no different than any of them in here. In fact, you won't know this could be a THC vape unless you did some research. And more they're doing with them then is they took the labeling off. Because what they wanted was, we had the Delta 9, so our street officers, and Brett and I were also then, we could make our criminal cases on those. But then it got down to, well, we'd have a Delta 8 vape. So when they first came out with those, the Delta 8 vapes, you could tell them by how they were packaged and how they were labeled, the security tags on them, and we could make or not make a case. So the point I'm trying to make is they wanted people to know they were Delta 8s so that they weren't illegal, and they just sucked the kids in more with that. The problem with that is our field test kits for THC, Delta 9 will also test positive for 8s, 10s, THC-8s. So then they stopped labeling them as Delta 8s. So it has a point now in the last year and a half, maybe around there, is that when we get these vapes, we don't know what they are. We don't know if they're Delta 8s, we don't know if they're illegal, we don't know if they're nicotine, because they've taken the labels all off of them, and it's how they marketed them. Some of them in here, I don't know if you have any of them, they'll even put games on the outside of them. You know, it's anything to get them to be hooked on them. There's one, yeah. And this is just a game. I don't know, these are dead, but anything to do to get it to hook. So as when Brent then drafted this, and I thought, well, yeah, that makes sense, and I agree. I'm happy that he had that we've drafted this. This is something that we've needed because it's frustrating. Schools' code of conduct, they can do their own with this, and majority of the cases that we have when we have students with vapes, they're very aggressive with that. They send the message, but then again, our hands are tied when I can't tell what it is. So how this ordinance is written, we'll be able to take enforcement action if we need to. A point he made is we have a lot of discretion when we write tickets. As resource officers, we spend a majority of the time trying to keep our kids out of trouble. Those that get into the judicial system, we work hard to keep them, to get them back out, whether that be diversion or probation. And these are, you know, the 5% kids that we work with and know on a daily basis. Unfortunately, those are a lot of those kids that fall into this trap. Again, this stuff, salt-based synthetic nicotine, it's so addictive. And then once they get on that, then they go on to the others. A point I wanted to make is that the last thing the city attorney wants or the county attorney wants to the diversion program is us to flood this with vape tickets. I mean, you can imagine if this is 2.5 years worth and my pile is twice that size, that's not our goal at all. Again, we go back to what's in the best interest for kids. And that's what we do as resource officers is we look at each individual student and what they need to make and what we can do for them to help meet their needs, and whether that be home life or school or whatever. We work also really closely with our administrators at the schools. Again, just have a unified front to make our kids successful. So I think as I look through this, and I let my wife look through the ordinance, it was, well, are they gonna think that you're gonna write 100 tickets a month? Could we? Maybe not 100, but probably 50. I can tell you that in the last year or so, we have tweaked the vape detectors, the alarms, maybe you can speak to that, the levels. At the junior high, they set theirs a little bit higher so they could find them a little quicker. Our administrators were so busy at the high school that we set ours at a different level so that we weren't responding to everything. And we continue now to tweak that down. It is an improvement. I think we have less. Do we still have an issue? Yes, and we probably always will have. But due to that, the school board then had passed and put the money out to put these vape detectors in. It's been an asset, and again, our administrators are very aggressive at trying to follow up on that. So this ordinance, if it's passed, is just another way for us to send that message when we need to do that. I don't think that we'll write a lot of tickets on this, but it makes it available if and when that's appropriate for the student. So, any questions?
So how much does one of these cost? I know nothing about them, absolutely nothing. That one that you showed
So
with the
I'll
game
just-
was pretty impressive.
I'll just show you this one right here. That one actually was one of the cheaper ones. This is a 4,000 puff. So this one device has 4,000 puffs in it. And actually somebody just priced this, it was $40 for this one right here. The rest of them are probably $20, $25, right around there.
When we first started seeing these, you know, you maybe have a 500 puff. And like you said, that's probably one of the bigger ones, but years past, and we could have brought those up. The old ones was with a power mod, where they had a cartridge in the top and you actually bought juice. You bought vape juice and then you would fill it up. and you could use that to smoke. And some are pens like this, some are, the power mods are a little bit bigger with a little bigger batteries, and then they would change them up, and depending on what the element was inside, they'd actually take pure THC oil, so you'd be smoking pure THC Delta 9 out of it. Yeah, the market has changed always to the disposable ones. They just puff them, and when they're done, when they run out, then they'll just discard them then.
Will this be up to the school's administrator or the city or the PD to educate of the change to the students and to the parents?
When we have an incident, like a vapor detector goes off and they catch a student in there smoking, then we have a unique relationship as a resource officer program. Not all of them in the state are like this. Our offices are right next to the principal's office. We work hand in hand. We're considered part of their administrative team. So we do a joint investigation, or we'll talk that student together. And again, it goes back to what's in the best interest for that child. So if we make a criminal case, that's our decision. What we do criminal-wise, and the school does theirs. Will we have input back and forth? Sure, we'll have that discussion. And again, it depends on each individual student. How many times have I talked to the student about this? So those decisions are made independently. So if a ticket's being wrote, that's my decision to be made. As far as the educational point, we'll hit them from both ways. Sometimes I'll have more of a rapport with one being dressed down, maybe Brent will as an officer in uniform, or the administration to talk with. There's a lot of different avenues. Again, it's what we think would work for that student. And then also the follow-up, and that's a benefit we have by having full-time officers in the schools, is that we see these kids every day. And our list of kids on my radar, pretty long. So even on a slow day, maybe when there's no crime, there always is something to do building relationships with the kids, and the follow-up with that.
To your point with the educating the students, whether it's illegal or not illegal, I operate right now on the fact that most kids think it is illegal anyway. Most teachers think it's illegal, most parents think it's illegal, so every time I catch a kid, I usually tell them, hey man, I'm gonna let you get off of this one, okay? We're gonna work through this, my conversation's not gonna change. It's just that now my words are gonna actually mean something, and I'm not kind of lying to the kid by saying it's illegal when it's really not.
Right.
So you think frustration-wise, is I see this kid that I know is making poor decisions, I've talked to him, we find him, he has a THC vape on him, not a nicotine vape, but a THC vape, but I can't tell if it's Delta 8 or 9, so I can't do anything with him right now. This isn't throwing the books at him, but at least gets them in the judicial system where they're not most likely be offered a diversion program, and that gives a chance for the diversion officers to work with them. Restrictions, school code of conduct would come into play. They have social moratorium. There are different things that they've tried with the kids to hold them accountable, and they've done a great job on that. But with some of our kids, it just needs that, maybe that hammer, and it's a step. We find kids then that don't get it after that we continue to work with and continue to follow up on. Those are the kids that maybe go on to probation or maybe even go further, and then either we save them, or those are the ones that our street officers chase around later on.
Well, you guys seem to have a pretty good handle on it, so I really appreciate that for sure.
Well, thank you. We try.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a calling.
Yeah.
You're more of a counselor than a police officer.
Sure.
And it's not traditional police work by any means, but
right.
We keep trying because we want our kids to graduate.
Yep.
Does this align with the legal age to buy these things then? You have to, is 21 now the new age?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
The problem is that with my credit card or Venmo account or whatever, I can go online and I can get these things sent to my home. It's not hard, if you can imagine. And again, I keep looking back at this, but he's probably thrown away half of what you see there. Again, I don't think people have a concept of how hard and how many kids are using. The marketing of it is just, it's all about money. The number of vapes that we actually deal with. I will say though, and maybe I'm repeating myself, but in the last year and a half, I think things are getting better, but the problem's there. It's never going to go away, but we need to continue to address it, and this ordinance will help us.
How does this work outside of the school system? We talk about school system, but if you see somebody just out in public or say pulled over for speeding and you happen to see a tobacco product there, how's this work in that situation outside of the school system?
So obviously I deal with the kids, we deal with the kids the most, and so we're dealing with it in that way. But other officers, to Dave's point earlier on, when we talk about the THC vapes, the Delta 8, Delta 9, it's gotten so confusing and so difficult to delineate what is what. To most officers, to be honest, when they see it, that's the least of their worries on a traffic stop. They're not gonna take the time. And trying to figure out what each of these is, you have to get on Google and you have to do your research. Well, you can't do that on a traffic stop or whatever else there might be. So in terms of on the street, officers can use it the same way. Just the other day, I heard a call come out where somebody called in 3 juveniles in the alley that were using vapes. Well, the officer got there, and I mean, as of right now, unless he sees them using it, or they admit to using it, or he catches them buying it, simply possessing it isn't against the law. But now it would be against the law. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this forward to us and putting this in front of us. Any other further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Short title.
Oh, yeah, I need a short title, please.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to enact Section 14-234 of the official city code to prohibit the possession or use of vapor products and/or tobacco by any person under the age of 21 years, to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form. All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance number 5912 passes on first reading.
Your Honor, I'd move that we suspend the rules and pass this on second and third reading.
Second.
Okay. Please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance number 5912 carries on second and third.
Moves us on to item number 20, in motion to consider consideration of approval of an engineering contract with Olson, Inc. for the City of Norfolk WPC Plant Expansion Study Project for an amount not to exceed $227,600.
I'll make a motion for consideration of approval.
Second.
All right. Steve, I'm going to direct this at you for some
Yes.
discussion.
Yes. Council, a couple pieces to this. We'll start with our 20-year master plan. The 20-year master plan shows that by 2040, we need to figure out how to expand the WPC facility, just as a function of community growth between now and that time. As we've been contemplating that, it was about a year ago, 2 years ago, we had some significant development by Milk Specialties on the south side of town. As a part of their development, there was a grant, a $300,000 grant through the Nebraska Economic Development for site and building development that was, MSG had received. It was a pass-through grant that came through the city as a function of the overloading that occurred approximately a year ago, 18 months to a year ago. As those dollars came to the city, we captured those dollars and held on to those. And during our conversations with MSG, asked that they allow those grant dollars to stay with the city for purposes of exploring options to reduce their loading on our system. Last fall, I think it was early September, we put an interim permit through. That interim permit had a time, I don't remember the specific time limit, 18 months to 2 years as I recall. And the reason it was an interim permit was it was anticipating, this study that would look at how plant expansion or would look at plant expansion and look at industrial options around MSG and how their load impacts that plant. At this point, what we've kind of determined and what this study is going to look at and provide data back on is that potentially by removing MSG and potentially Highland Roberts as well, and putting them on a separate digester would provide the plant capacity that we would need by 2040. It would probably provide us another 20 to 30 years of plant capacity within our existing plant. So that might push us all the way out into 2070. So that's a little bit of background there. Again, what's in front of you today is a study. It would be conducted by Olson's Associates. It would engage all of the industries in town in a conversation of what's their current demand, what's their 3 to 5, maybe 10-year expansion, and is there any 10 to 20-year expansion in their mind. So that's just kind of part of any plant, understanding your plant, understanding future needs on your plant. So there would be those industrial user meetings. Another significant part of this is up to 3 site visits looking at other communities in Nebraska that operate digesters. It would be an analysis, a couple different analyses on an anaerobic digester system and how that could be operated. There would be conceptual site planning, just figuring out where we would put that and how that would connect into the industries, cost analysis, and then there would be council presentation, council subcommittee presentation, and council presentation on the results of the study. So that's what this is. This $227,000, $600 contract ultimately would be paid for using those grant dollars that we were able to capture and keep, even though they were intended to be a bypass grant directly to MSG. Most recently, there's another conversation going on. You may all be familiar that last August or July, I think the state was awarded about $307 million grant. Part of that grant is looking at hub and spoke digesters related to the dairy industry. And so we've been having some very good conversation with MSG. Their name did change to Actus Nutrition, so might use those interchangeably, but some really good conversations with MSG, pulling in partners, pulling in an energy company to put a gas scrubber in. So there's 2 different conversations going on. Ultimately, I think the end result of this is going to be a conversation in about, I would say about May of this year, where we would sit down with those industries, both MSG and Prairie Farms or Highland Roberts, and have conversations and start to put agreements in place that they would pay for this infrastructure improvement to pull them off of our system and then open up the capacity of that system. So that's kind of a lot of what's going on here with this particular study and how that's being funded.
Any questions? Any questions from the audience?
You want to repeat that, Steve? Just joking.
Jim McKenzie, I just have some questions in regards to the process of the selection of this engineering company to do this. Was this selection based upon any kind of a competitive bid process?
Generally, we do not select engineering consultants on a competitive bid process.
Okay, and is there a reason for that?
You want to select an engineering company based on the quality of their work, the history of their work.
So are there no other engineering companies that might be able to do this work?
There are, certainly not. It's possible. JEO could potentially be a company locally that does this kind of work.
Yeah, the two local companies would be JEO and Olson. Olson has worked on our plant quite extensively over the years. So they have a lot of knowledge around our plant and how it operates, the system. They did the expansion study here in 2020.
And I guess that leads to the next question. I mean, does the acceptance of this proposal historically lead to the same engineering company performing engineering services if the project is ultimately awarded and construction happens?
It doesn't have to. I mean, at any point in the process, we can go out for a request for proposals or a request for qualifications, RFQ process, RFP process. Again, the proposals would be a non-cost proposal. The RFQ process is a non-fee-based process.
I guess, I mean, I see us awarding, many millions of dollars of engineering contracts, it seems annually, and when I looked at this proposal, for instance, I saw the fee schedule shows 4 different tasks totaling that $227,600, but there's no detail on any hours. And so how do we know, when we look at that proposal, how do we know the number of hours are reasonable? How do we know how many hours they're actually committing? And then when you get a bill, how do you know if it actually meets what your expectation, or what the proposal was, if we don't even have the detail of the hours that they're proposing?
I believe Olson did prepare a detail early on in the originally this started as about an $850,000, $900,000 contract. That came in last fall, and I'm pretty confident that when we were looking at that much larger preliminary design, something that was going to take us to about a 30% preliminary design, they did do that, and that's pretty typical on contracts, and most often we'll include that and push that through with the agenda item, and you can see that hour breakdown. Here, based on what we're doing, it's going to be a lot of industrial processing experts on the side of Olson. It's going to be heavy in meetings, heavy in there'll be a series of Teams meetings. We're using Teams to cut down on travel time, where we're meeting with the local industries to ask them about their future here in Norfolk, what that future looks like, what kind of demand they think they're going to need. So we just have to look at it based on we're at the table for almost the entire process, and so when those bills come in, we'll have an idea of whether those hours are accurate or not.
I mean, another example, when I look at the scope of services, I see task 400 shows city council involvement, and that's the only description. When I look at the task 4 description, it shows 2 meetings, one with the city council and one with the subcommittee, and yet that task is $33,800. And I only see 2 meetings identified in that task.
Right. So there's 2 members that would be present at that. So there's going to be a lot of presentation material that's going to have to be prepared. There'll be a series of conversations and meetings with staff behind that as we prepare the data for those meetings.
But those meetings are identified in the other tasks, not in the council.
Again, it's hourly, so they only bill for the hours they use. If we end up at the end of this, we use $125,000 because that's what the hours show, then that's what we pay.
I mean, if you have 2 people coming here for 2 meetings, you got 4 people total. If they're here for 2 hours, that's 8 hours. So we have $33,800.
There's a lot more time that goes into it besides just the time that they're here for those meetings. I mean, that's the whole meeting prep.
I mean, it's hard for me to, and I'm not sure, it's probably hard for you guys to understand where those dollars are coming from. And when we do these engineering contracts, and they're big dollars, I mean, we spend a tremendous amount of money on them. I just think that we need to start looking at a more competitive environment for these so that we're sure that the public dollars are being spent as best they possibly can.
Yeah, again, I would push back. There are certain things in the world. Engineering is not a commodity. A commodity is something you don't care about who's doing it. All you care about is the price. Engineering services are not commodities.
I
And so
understand that, but if
we
it's a
do-
competitive
and-
process, you have the opportunity then to look at multiple bids, and then you can do the interview and say, do you have the skills or not? But at least you've got a competitive process. Right now, there's zero competitive process, so I would argue that there's no incentive for them to try and do it as cost effectively as possible.
I mean, I'm not gonna say we can't do that, Jim. We can do that. We're gonna have to, we'd write a very defined and specific task so that we're getting, if we wanted to see equivalent numbers. JEO might have different thoughts, a different consulting firm might have different thoughts on how to approach that. It's gonna be a different number. It doesn't mean that the lower number is a better process or a better outcome. We have to rely a little bit on the history and the background of the people doing that work. And like I say, Olson's been extremely involved out there. They do have a presence here in Norfolk. One of the things that we were conscious of over the last few years is that we were spending a lot of money with Olson's and they were not in the community. And we had that conversation that if we're going to continue to spend money with your company, you're going to be in the community. And so they have opened an office here and they are hiring staff and they are expanding. And so there's a sort of an economic growth component to it for the community as well, and keeping our dollars spent here. Not that all of their consultants or all of their staff on this project are going to be here in the community, but.
I hope that doesn't mean that we feel as though we have to utilize that engineering firm or any specific engineering firm for that reason, because again, it comes down to, we just talked about where our budget's at and having to rein in our budget and costs, and I just think that we need to really focus on making sure we're getting the most bang for the buck. And I think a competitive process would do that. I would encourage us moving forward to move to a competitive process. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any more discussion?
Can we look at doing that, Steve, just getting a second bid in these processes on consulting? I know we used to have a lot of JEO when I first came on council. It seems like we're having less JEO now and more Olson. So
Yeah, it's gonna be that's gonna be a process that's gonna take us probably a couple months to get through. Again, we're gonna have to, not that this scope isn't tight, but we're gonna have some conversations and write up a pretty tight scope and give Olson's another opportunity to put a number on that.
again, and this money's coming from that grant money, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, please vote.
Your Honor, I will be abstaining.
Voting in the affirmative, McCarthy, Grandquist, Arns, Jensen, Webb, Hildebrand, Beckman, abstaining, Langy, motion carries.
On to item number 21, need a motion consideration of ordinance number 5913, authorizing the sale of off-street vehicle parking district number 1, Lot 2, Block 1, Golden Spike Edition, Phase 2, in the city of Norfolk, Madison County, Nebraska, to River Point Properties LLC for the purchase price of $20,000. Candace, I suppose, again, thanks to you, but.
I'll make a motion for consideration of ordinance number 5913.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Candace?
All right, so what you have in front of you and what's been pulled up on the screen is a proposed ordinance and purchase agreement for the sale of a lot that's currently owned by the city of Norfolk but managed by the vehicle parking district. So this lot was purchased in 1985 for just over $10,000, and it's really kind of off the beaten path of what's truly accessible for common use within the vehicle parking district and as it relates to downtown. And so some conversations started in, I believe back in September at the vehicle parking district meeting. It was mentioned that
this lot was primarily being used by the company that is adjacent to the lot. And there was interest in exploring that and how that could potentially be adjusted to make it open to the public. Then the discussion really morphed into, why don't we just see if they're interested in purchasing this lot from us? It isn't generally used by the public unless there's a very, very large event. And so that discussion led to a little bit of back and forth between the property owners of that adjacent business and Connie Gary with the Vehicle Parking District, who is here and can also speak to this evening. So they're proposing to sell this lot for $20,000, and we would just ask for your consideration in that approval.
I guess I got a question here, where this is located.
It's right by Wacker Home Improvement, I think.
It's been a long, I mean, how does that impact that? That's a long time staying in business. How does this impact that business that sits there?
So the purchasers are actually the property owners of the
Okay.
Wacker Home Improvement. And so they're making it available for this business to actually use on a day-to-day basis without any kind of restrictions or fines. Currently with them parking in those spaces for a long term is actually against our code. And so when it comes to having police enforce it for a parking lot that isn't typically even used by the public on a day-to-day basis, it just made sense to move in this direction, so.
So this helps the businesses that are in this complex.
Correct.
And Candace, and how was the price determined?
So the Vehicle Parking District had discussion on this at their meeting, and they came up with a price of $25,000, and then I believe Jared Faltus countered at $20,000.
And an appraisal done?
No appraisal was done on this piece. When we look at this piece, it really can't be built on. And the proximity to the train tracks and any other adjacent businesses does make it difficult for any other business to utilize it. So it's kind of an interesting parcel in the shape and proximity to other businesses. So an appraisal wasn't done. Do you have something to add on?
I don't, just if they have questions for me.
I'm curious if this was a city lot, and I think like this business, Wacker Home Improvements, used this lot probably since it's been in business, or the other businesses, I think it was at Beamer or something that was there also. Multiple businesses, but whoever cleaned the snow off this lot?
The DPD did.
Did they? So it was kind of known anyway, but used mutually, I guess. This
Yes,
seemed to
and-
be going on.
And a few years ago, when we did have the parking plan downtown, they did pay rent to have that. So there was income at that time. And we've had a downtown business that came to us and.
Hey Connie, can you step up and
Oh,
then
I'm sorry.
go ahead and sign in?
Oh, that's all right. Gotta change that. Okay, and like I said, what actually initiated this is that a downtown business representative who comes regularly to our VPD meetings had brought it up several times. Why do we keep having this expense on it? We take care of it. We do the snow removal. We're not getting any rents collected right now. Let's just sell it. And so, there was discussion about it, and the board did decide that we would sell it. And we got an appraisal somewhat of what we could expect to get for it, and offered it for that. They responded with an offer back, and the board did accept it, so.
So what, from here, what the VPD essentially has $20,000. Is there allocation or an interest of what you would do with that?
No, just put it back in the general fund. We've got other things we're looking at doing in the future, so it would help to fund some of that, so.
Like
we'd like to-
other possible parking or
Right.
some improvements for
Right, we're looking
VPD?
at maybe doing a parking study, so it could go towards that.
And the sale is going to the owner of that building?
Yes.
The sale of this property? So it doesn't interfere with that current business?
No, it's going to the owner of the property.
I have one more thing. The representatives from River Point Properties LLC were not able to come tonight, but they did provide this statement. It says River Point Properties LLC was approached by the Vehicle Parking District about purchasing a tract of the land from the city of Norfolk. This tract of land sits directly to the south of our property at 301 North 4th Street. We have expressed interest in purchasing the subject lot and plan to continue using it as parking as it has limited alternative uses. We do not have any plans to monitor the parking on nights and weekends, so this parking should be available for occasional community celebrations, overflow parking as it has been in the past. Thank you for your consideration and request a vote in favor of selling the property to River Point Properties LLC, and that is from Russ Wilcox, representative.
Danny, with that house, that lot we bought over there off of Georgia, there was a process I thought we had to go through. Do we not have to go through that process now as far as opening it up to the community because the VPD manages the property?
Which house on Georgia? I'm sorry.
The one that
I'm-
burnt down, that we just,
Okay.
you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, well, so we do have that. That is here. Let me see. Where's that? See here. So yeah, this does follow state law. Are you talking like in terms of?
We had to
Open it up- open it up for
bids
the-
and all that. There was a process we had to follow, I think, Lyle, with that property. Do
Yeah, I can't speak to this process here. I'm not, in terms of like how these discussions were had with the property owner, but we did follow is it 16202 in terms of conveying of property. We followed that.
With this-
I can't speak to why it wasn't open for bid. I don't believe it was required to be.
Okay, so we're good.
Yes, I think we're fine, but I don't know why we didn't offer it for bid versus other times when we have, so I really can't speak to that. But in terms of the documents that were needed, those are the ones that are before you tonight to execute the sale.
But is this open then now to a remonstrance period so that people can see that we're? That's what I thought we heard back when we originally brought this up. There'd be a remonstrance period.
So that's so that's a 16202 process that I laid out. That's why we had the two separate documents to effectuate this. So that still is in place.
Okay.
So after the passage and the publication of this, there'll be 30 days before that's finalized.
I feel like we should have done that here, Danny. We should have opened it up to committee.
Does the council have any further questions for us? Okay. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Short title, please.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to authorize the transfer of city property, to provide the terms of transfer and authorize the mayor to execute and deliver a quitclaim deed to the property, to provide for a remonstrance to said transfer as provided by law, to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
All right, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance number 5913 carries on first reading.
Seeing no opposition, I'll make a motion, we suspend the rules and pass this ordinance on second and third.
Second.
Discussion? Please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance number 5913 carries on second and third.
Brings us to item number 22. Need a motion to consideration of approval of a real estate purchase agreement for property owned by the city of Norfolk under the off-street vehicle parking district number 1 located at Lot 2, Block 1, Gold Spike Edition, Phase 2 in the city of Norfolk, Madison County, Nebraska, to be sold to Riverpoint Properties LLC, a Nebraska limited liability company for $20,000.
I'll make a motion for consideration of approval.
We have a motion, a second. Some discussion, please. Candace, if you want to come back up, that's fine.
Yeah, I certainly can. Is there anything further? This is just a purchase agreement for the transaction.
I don't think anything up here. Anybody else have anything to bring to? All right, seeing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
We are adjourned.